This meeting is being recorded.
There we go. Hello, everybody. Here we are again. This is the third conversation between myself and Naomi in this series, as we like to call it. So we've got some really interesting stuff. We're going to talk about leadership. And Naomi recently went to an event, and she's going to talk about that, and we'll just go back and forth and seeing what we can build on top of that. Naomi, can you introduce the DNA of Success event that you went to and share any insights, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. Thanks again, by the way. I always enjoy these conversations with you. So I just attended a program in India called the DNA of Success. It's given by the Sadhguru Leadership Academy. As with every program, just an incredible crew of amazing people executing it, and it was in a very beautiful space and just incredibly done. Very beautiful program. And yeah, I've been to a lot of leadership programs. I've studied this a lot in the last dozen plus years, but I had just really wanted to get the perspective of the Sadhguru Leadership Academy on leadership. I think that tends to be more holistic, right? And truly inclusive of all the levels, the deeper levels that are really important to me, because so much of the leadership, success, CEO, entrepreneur driven content is very performance based. And not that it shouldn't be, but I just really wanted it to have more depth. And I did get that from this program. I think anyone who goes will.
So I'm going to interrupt here, right? When you talk
Please.
about performance-based seems to be the tip of the iceberg, and then the depth is into the ocean, capturing the rest of the iceberg. Would be really nice, these levels you mentioned, it'd be really nice if you can, I don't know if it's possible to necessarily break them down. I don't think it's like level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like that, in an order. I would say it's more of something else, right? Everything fits into one another in some little complex way, but it still builds on top of one another. It's like an inside out game. And I think a lot of leadership that we see, it's about outside in, but we should really focus on the inside out, which it focuses on the individual and how the individual can improve upon themselves in really deep ways. And maybe that's what you can talk about, right? So we're going to go under the ocean, and then you can do you want to go like all the way to the bottom and come up, or do you want to go up and then go all the way to the bottom? I think going to the bottom and coming up, which would be an inside out, would be a better way.
Yeah, it's the way. It's the way. So yeah, really beautiful point and exactly true. One of the things that Sadhguru said in this program is that you can't do big things with small tools. And ultimately, true leadership is being in touch with genius and seeing things before other people see them. So if and bringing forth something that is not already in the memory of the collective. So there's a way that everything comes from how basically highly you function, how well you function, how developed is your system, and we talk a lot about this in yoga and meditation and personal development, but from this more Vedic yogic perspective, to understand what the system really is, like this cosmic computer of the human system, the layers of obviously not just mind and emotion and body, but like the subtle layers, and how we are capable of cultivating our systems in a way that take us beyond being just a human animal and becoming like a human being. So that's the whole purpose of yoga, from what I understand, is to cultivate your system in a way that allows you to be in alignment in a way that you can access that source of creation, that genius, that brilliance of nature that created all of this. You can have access to that within you. And that is like the level of which you can do that is the level of which you can do something great in the world and become a true leader.
That's beautiful. And I'm thinking of the chitta. That's what's coming up for me,
Mm.
right? Because Sadhguru's also mentioned this. When you go to the chitta, it's beyond memory. You tap into chitta, different things happen. And it sounds like, I don't know if it is exactly that you were mentioning when you talk about the genius to see something that is beyond the collective conscious. This reminds me of something Shriram said. What I heard him say is that a lot of people don't accomplish their destiny. I don't remember exactly how he said it, but a lot of people don't accomplish or achieve their destiny or live up to that destiny, what they can live up to, because they're just not doing it. And maybe that's what it is, right? Like there's some unique genius in every single person, but are you actually tapping into it, and are you allowing yourself to live through that, or are you conforming to what others think you should do, and you're too busy living somebody else's life rather than allowing your unique genius to flower?
Yeah,
That
there's
come up?
so many layers of that. So many layers we could talk about there. But it reminds me of one of Sadhguru's quotes, which is, if you don't do what you can do, you're a disaster. And it's basically the same thing, which is most people don't live up to their potential and tap into their full potential and their unique genius because of whatever it is, social, cultural, family, programming, expectations, education, like success, all these things that in a way, I mean, they're not always, but you could call them gilded cages sometimes. And
Yes, I golden handcuffs, totally.
yeah, exactly. And also, so it's like identity, and then a different level of identity, which is like patterns and compulsions that kind of keep us occupied and maybe
Vasanas.
small. Yeah, and small. So there's like a couple reasons, many probably more than that, but those are two main reasons that I think people don't.
Yeah, and I was referring to vasanas. Vasana in Sanskrit refers to smell, right? And so there's a certain fragrance of your being, and it's that vasana which leads you into particular directions. If you can, and this is what I've really focused on, is like, man, I just change the fragrance of my being. If I change the fragrance of my being, then I will naturally attract different situations to myself. I will act, behave, think, feel differently. The way I exist will change. Really just changing this from the inside out, because you cannot change it from the outside in. A flower's fragrance is based on the quality of the flower itself. You cannot go to the flower and put shit on it and expect it to smell like shit after you clean it up, right? If you clean up the shit off it, it's gonna exude its own quality again. Its quality does not change because you put shit on it and then didn't clean it. Like the quality of the flower has to do with what it is, but the flower cannot change its quality, right? But a human being can. So I could be in a particular environment and it may feel like I am a certain way because of my environment. But the moment I change my environment, and if that environment is nurturing to my highest possibility, then I can step into my highest possibility, allow it to blossom, and then and that'll happen. So really changing the environment can be really tremendous in order to change, in order to remove any obstacles that may be keeping you arriving at your highest. Let's go on. Tell me more about what you learned. And
I love what you just said though, because I do think that's it's like we talk about this a lot in coaching, right? Because we're certainly that's, my main offering at this point. So when you're saying that, it's like even the process of coaching itself, as well as the meditation and yoga, like that personal development journey, is all about that. It's all about what you just said, is like getting clear and free from those gilded chains, those, impressions, those vasanas that hold us down, back, small. So yeah, that's the amazing thing about this time that we live in, is that the spiritual process and these more sophisticated, like awarenesses of psychology and layers of karma and all these things now that we can actually articulate and look at consciously, this gives us a freedom and an ability to evolve like we've never had, I think. So in that way, again, I would just say, like, don't waste this precious opportunity wherever you are in life. Like, go for it, because we have the power to move forward faster than we ever have in history, I think.
Well, the next question somebody might naturally ask is, how do I not waste this? This doesn't even sound actionable. Sounds very abstract. What the fuck do I do? It sounds like we're just speaking out there somewhere. So I'm going to make this actionable. We are speaking out there somewhere, right? In regards to what I'll make it very actionable right now. Step 1, follow your sense of wonder. How are you going to do this? The first question you're probably going to ask yourself is like, oh, I wonder. Do I wonder? Oh, when was the last time I wondered? Didn't I wonder today? So that's you wondering right now, right? So the reason I even bring up this, why is step 1 to wonder? It's because a lot of people don't have a sense of wonder. And why do I say this? In my interactions in many different types of environments I've been, I've come across many folks that just shoot down ideas, that shoot down the sense of wonder. This won't work, that won't work. You can't think like this, don't think like that. It's fine if something won't work, but the real question here is like, why is your environment just telling you how you should think? Is your environment deciding for you how you should think, deciding for you how you should feel, how you should act? These things, if the environment is telling you, then you're living outside in rather than inside out. You're not following your sense of wonder, and that's conformity. So really the first question here is, how do I begin to wonder more and follow that wonder? And the next step is, oh, okay, great. Now that I'm wondering, how am I going to do things following that wonder, but also conform to the degree that is necessary for me to conform? You can do that. You can wonder. You don't have to necessarily keep wondering before you leave your house and be like, holy crap, I just spent the whole day wondering. I didn't even go to work. Just wondering about this, wondering about that. It doesn't have to be like that. As you go through your daily life, really start wondering and just allow that sense of wonder and even a sense of awe. If you can create that, you shouldn't even have to create that. Like, it is awesome to exist.
Just tap into it. You don't have to create.
So I would say this first step is that follow your sense of wonder, and then don't let anything outside of you or even inside of you, right? We talked about the mental, emotional patterns, generational forces. Don't let any of these things, again, kill that sense of wonder. So you need to reignite it. And sense of wonder has existed since you were born. If you pay attention, it's probably gone down by 95% even. But if you can start to raise it by 1%, and then another percent, just keep igniting that sense of wonder. Because as you do this, what's going to happen is you're going to start opening up doors that are unique to you that other people can't see. And that's how you can start accessing yourself, your sense of self, beyond the collective consciousness that may have been imprisoning you into, it's not even the full collective consciousness. It's like a sub version of it, like a part of it that that is keeping you in prison. Now you get out of that prison through wonder. Because now you're wondering different things. And as you do that, you take action. You say, oh, I want to learn this. Oh, I want to try this. Oh, this is cool. Let me give this a shot. You try something new. You go somewhere different. You explore a new place. You talk to different types of people. Now, this is going to open up a lot of doors for you. And eventually you're gonna uncover more gifts, and you'll know what is it naturally for you that you gotta look into. And that would say that honestly, that's how you make this actionable. Because when you do this, now you'll know what it is that you should explore for yourself. Because I can give you a list of 10 things, be like, man, you can do these 10 things. You're gonna get so bored and you're not gonna do these things. But if the moment you start wondering and you come to me and then you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, you're already gonna have hit 4 of those 10 things in some way, shape, or form. And now when I make a suggestion for you, you're just going to show up and be like, hey, this is interesting to me, because you've already opened up your mind. You've already opened up your heart for that. So now you're willing to receive. You're ready to receive and take action on that new step, whatever that is for you, right? Maybe it's as a creative doing something new. Maybe it's creating something that has never been done before. Maybe it's like some sort of innovation on top of something that exists, or maybe it's, I don't even know. Like it could be anything, right? There's something where you could be pushing the edges, big or small, whether it's socially, uh, not whether it's something that society will say is amazing and give you accolades for, whether it's something society will not care about. It doesn't matter. It's what matters to you, and that's only going to happen for you because you follow your sense of wonder. So if you do that, then naturally your life is not going to be about just performance and just achieving, but you're going to have this energy, this fire within you, and then you can systematically arrange yourself so that you can achieve more and perform more. But you're not going to be miserable even if you force yourself to achieve and perform. That's what happens. People like, if it's performance based and you're just forcing yourself to do, then you might get bored, or you might have resentment and be like, man, I missed out on all these things. But if you're doing something that's genuinely true to yourself, why would you're not going to care what you missed out on. You might, throughout the journey, you will definitely have episodes, but that's a totally normal thing, right? Because that's like that human part. But man,
There's
like,
a lot of
it's gonna ignite that.
for
Hmm?
me because there's a lot of threads to pull in what you just shared.
Please go ahead.
I would call it curiosity, but that's me. I think I use the word wonder less, although I love that word as well. So it's like curiosity. And I would even say from like, again, if we go back to the principles shared by very successful billion-dollar company CEOs and like many different people in this particular conference, a lot of the principles of doing something great and successful as a leader or a successful founder or something like that has to do with being curious or wondering and allowing yourself the freedom in that, and then setting up teams that do that together on some level, right? There's like a certain level of like, think about anybody who's created, like founded a certain, industry, company, leader, and, innovation. That's what they're doing. That's the process they're doing. There isn't a template they're following. Maybe there's like a certain level of like a business structure template, but really within the inners of what they're bringing out into the world, it's wonder, discovery, creative process, genius, curiosity, and successful teams consistently communicate in this way and like look at the market. What is the market? Because really successful business or innovation always has to serve, like provide value, basically. Provide value and then creating a business around that provision of value. So whether it's a market or like a product or a service or whatever. So, and then you get feedback and you consistently like work, improve, adjust, deliver. That was a principle that ran through like literally every presenter there.
So it sounds like cultivating an environment of innovation and and ensuring that it's not necessarily like a closed box, but you're
Yeah.
interacting with the market and you're receiving feedback and just keeping that feedback loop on. And that's the same thing. Like I know from the startup world, growing up, everything that I've read, and even what we're applying at Shutterly, it is that type of process. But the way that we do it, I think, is unique to every single individual and every single team, and it's a co-creative process. Right. So there's no, and actually this applies to this, right? Like this applies to leadership aspect when we're saying going beneath going into the ocean, right? When we look not just at the tip of the iceberg, when you go there, it's a completely different dimension of operation. And in reality, it's like this too. When I'm walking right now, I'm moving my hand, it's one way. But the moment I go into the water and I'm swimming, it's a completely different way of operating.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and I feel like too, it was a real like a real principle that many different people shared about like the feedback from the team, not just the marketplace, but also the team, and like really allowing for everyone to create a collaborative environment where people get to share their curiosity and to share their mistakes and to share like all the things so that they really could improve in exponential ways. And any of that, for example, you mentioned noticing a lot of like people shutting things down and being like, oh, we can't do that. That's negative bias, that's like identity, that's limitation, that's a closed, it's not a growth mindset, I would say. I think it's a fundamental relationship with life that is not how life works. And it's stifling and limiting and unhealthy, stagnant. And I think as a leader, you really want people on your team. So one of the presenters, it was actually, there was a lot of different presenters from really successful companies. And then one of the things that they did was have the leadership team at Isha share a few things. And these people pull off incredible things, including the Save Soil Journey, which was like a huge thing that they did in like less than 2 months. They set it up and whatever. So they talked a little bit about their process. And one of the biggest things that struck me the most during that whole weekend, and was from that, which was that one of the women was asking Sadhguru, when he was talking about what he wanted to have happen, what needed to happen, you know, how are we going to do that? Like, I don't see how this is possible, but yeah, how are we going to achieve that? How are we going to pull it off? And he said to her, there are forces at work here beyond your understanding, and you just need to make sure you don't get in their way. And that's really impactful for me, because what you just shared about like how people are like, oh, that's not possible. Oh, you know, you have to do this. These are the rules of blah, blah, whatever it is. Again, it's not, though, that's like people getting in the way of a creative process or of a birthing of a new thing or of a possibility that you're bringing out and unfolding. And you know, that's generally based on their limited belief system or some identity that they have, or fear. Basically, it's fear. I mean, if you really want to boil it down, generally, any kind of thing like that is fear, whether it's fear of not succeeding. So they just, you know, there's so many things. But anytime you're trying to lead, do something that hasn't been done before in this way. You're trying to create a company, create some kind of value of a need that you see in a marketplace or in a space. because that's what value is. Value creation, you see a gap, you see a need, you see like something there that you're going to then provide a solution for, and you create a business out of it. Anytime you see that if it had been done, it would be done, or in that particular way. You even may see like a particular gap that's unique that can be filled better. That's what innovation is, right? So you have to allow the creative force, and you interact with it to block it, to shut it down, to limit it. That's fear, and that's, I would say, not healthy, you know?
Well, that being said, we look at Tony Robbins' work, he talks about the 6 basic needs. And 2 of the 6 basic needs are opposing. One is uncertainty and the other is certainty. So each human of the 6 basic needs, according to his work, 2 of them are dominant. But we all have a certain amount, we all have each of those needs to a degree. Right? So let's say somebody might want certainty more and uncertainty less. It's like polar opposites, and those are 2 of the needs. So why do I mention this? In business, there's risk and uncertainty. Risk is something that can be calculated. Risk is something that can be managed, mitigated. Uncertainty is something you don't know what you don't know. It's the unknown. And what we're discussing here is uncertainty. Uncertainty is an element that cannot be avoided. It is an element that is outside of your control. It's something that
Part of the creative process too.
it's
And
part of the creative process. And
like, go ahead.
I was just going to talk about how there's a way to actually move through uncertainty, a proven way to move through uncertainty. But I can talk about that after you finish your point.
So another aspect, another principle is that it's about the process. The process itself is the whole thing. This relates as well to another really key principle, which is ambition versus vision. So really, again, these are like key fundamental principles of success, leadership, building true, like value, whether it be a company or a business in the world.
So like ambition is about me, vision is about all.
It's true. And there's a lot more details that are really beautiful, but yes, ambition is ruthless. It can be ruthless, right? It's exclusive. It's like, I'm going to get this done. And then it like doesn't really fully matter how. And vision is inclusive. And basically, by the way, this is another fundamental principle, is if we were to really look at the underlying motivation and intention of all business or activity in the world, it's human well-being. It might be narrow because it's like, oh, my personal financial bank account well-being, and maybe the family that I have or the 2 people that I care about or whatever. But ultimately, if we were to really peel it back, boil it down, it's human well-being. So what we have to do is align ourselves with human well-being at a global scale and include all of it. So that's where, that's a big concept, but I really do believe that it's real, And in terms of going back, because these are big overarching principles that everything can kind of be held and sort of explored through.
But one thing I want to say is that ruthlessness from the ambition, it can still apply to vision because it's a mode of operation, and you must do what is required in a given situation at a given time. That is practical wisdom, one of the virtues that Socrates talked about as well. So ruthlessness cannot be avoided. It is when you're in the physical realm, there are certain conditions under which you're operating. You must do what is required. You're being bombed, you're gonna fucking retaliate. Like
it reminds me of of that like Krishna Arjuna thing, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's what that brings up for me, because you're you're right that sometimes that overall vision of global well-being can include certain things that, you know, in isolation but that's feel like,
Well, let's clarify here, right? So the vision is about doing what is required. In order to have the clarity to do what is required in your heart, you must hold well-being for all life within you. And that is how you see what is required in the given moment, and you take your action. You can't see far ahead necessarily. We don't have a capacity to. It's totally fine, but at least you have that feeling of this is what's required, even though I may not necessarily agree with doing this in this given situation. It is appropriate. It's about appropriateness. It's not about right or wrong. It's about appropriateness. And so looking at, that's where the vision is, right? But then the ambition about me, where it's, oh, I'm just going to go and break the rules only solely for my benefit. And who is this me? Essentially, what the vision does in this way is it forces you to break your barriers of who you are. And that itself becomes a spiritual process, in addition to being a way for one to contribute to something that is beyond
it's
oneself.
an evolutionary process. Like that's what life is. So you're really trying to grow yourself into a big, you know, I talked earlier about doing big things with, you need a big tool. If you're really trying to grow your capacity and make whatever your vision is on and contribute in whatever way for the full potential, to bring out the full potential of yourself and benefit the world. Yeah, I mean, that's a process, and it's an evolutionary process. Everything is an evolutionary process if you decide to live life in that way. You can try to slow it down, but it's still happening. It's just whether you're consciously interacting with it or not. Then the other aspect that I just wanted to briefly touch on, which you said, like certainty and uncertainty are the basic 6 needs, because of course, and I think that in a way the feminine, you know, relates to this, in that we tend to like to feel safe and more, you know, which can be correlated with certainty, but it's not. Okay, so this could be really deep, but it's, for me, I think that again, this relates to how my level of alignment with nature's principles, in the intelligence of nature, how life actually works, and cultivating my system in a way that is creating the stability and the certainty. Because if you really look at life itself, everything's fluctuating all the time, right? Like in nature, the weather, the seasons, they're like time. There's so many things. There's no real certainty. I mean, and even though it's like, okay, well, we have a certain ish lifespan and there's like a certain trajectory and cycle of life, but within that, there's no certainty, really. So my experience is that
Death is the only certainty.
Exactly. So my experience is that by cultivating your connection within your nervous system itself, your system, your physiology, all the layers of your nervous system, your energetics, everything, with the place, the ground of being, that root within the transcendent consciousness, because that's the only stable ground in existence, that silent depth underneath all of it. So when you are able to like regularly cultivate your connection to that space, that's what creates the solidity and stable platform within your system to deal with all of the infinite complex dynamism, uncertainties of life, and also to be able to be involved and perceptive and interacting on the level that you need to in order to be a true leader.
Okay, that was beautiful and such a great segue because to something that just came up now. And I'm actually also going to follow up on my point earlier about hacking uncertainty. So what you said is very beautiful and true because it illustrates the difference between stillness and dynamism. There's, as you allow yourself to fall into realms of silence, you can hit the ultimate stillness and just be there. And that's the certainty. Because there's nothing permanent, but the silence is permanent if you just allow yourself to fall into that. And I'm doing it right now, or rather letting it happen.
And that's becoming meditative, right?
Yeah. And so that's the internal part. Now, how do you manage situations externally? So rules of improv. Does anybody here know rules of improv? Do you know rules of improv, Naomi? Have you done improv?
No, not really. I
Okay.
don't.
I did improv last couple weeks, drop-in classes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. And it's great. So I've done improv like probably like 6, 7 years ago. I did a couple drop-in classes. And the reason I mentioned improv is because the way to hack uncertainty is to follow the rules of improv. Improv means improvisation and is a form of acting. And in improv, it's unscripted. You just show up. You might be alone, you might be with a few people, and you have a theme. According to the theme and according to the 2, 3 rules you're given, you're co-creating with each other. And you may not even know who the people are.
Yeah.
And there's no particular outcome, but you're just playing. And in improv, the instrument that you have to play with is this right here. So if your body, your voice, your expressions. So there's ways they break it down, but the voice, and the voice has so many elements. Expressions. And that interacts with the voice. The body language, everything. And you take each of those and you break them down and you experiment with them. And as you exercise that, you become aware of it. And now you can play with them in order to create something. And now there's a few people here together and you're going to be co-creating for a period of time. You don't even know when the end is going to be, but you just know that you're co-creating something according to the theme, according to the rules. And that right there creates magic.
Nice.
Because you don't know what the person next to you is going to do. But they do something, now you have to do something. But you because it's unpredictable, you have to do something, but you don't know what. But you just know something within you. So
keeps you like alert and engaged, right?
yes, and in a very beautiful and fun way because you're all there to contribute. And guess what? One of the most important things in improv is yes and. You can say no, but, yes, but, yes and is the way to go. So you're like yes to whatever shows up and you build on it and you just go on and on and on. So this right here, the rule, if you can do improv, a bunch of improv drop-in classes, that's going to exercise that muscle, okay? And you go into stillness, silence, allow that to blossom within you. Now you as a being are ready, and you as a human are more attuned to improv. Now, does this mean anything that you're working on, you improvise? No, it's a mix of improvisation. It's a mix of pre-planning, right? So you have pre-planning improvisation, and every single day, every single moment, your plans are going to change as you have to improvise because there's so much uncertainty. And so it's the dance between the two. It's the dance between improvisation and pre-planning, and they come together, and so it makes it a beautiful, fun, engaging, involved journey.
And like a live life, right? And a live dynamic process, which is exciting. And to me, what those 2 words, I almost want to say between structure and flexibility.
Yeah, and the outcomes will be great too. The outcome, not only is it about experience, but also it's about the outcomes. And if this environment can be created with the team, it's amazing, right? So really, like I'm implying these principles for myself so I can really be that example and I can create that by bringing that forth with the people that I'm collaborating with, right?
Yeah,
Because this is going to be explosive for the type of contribution that we can make. Maybe not. Who knows? I could be wrong. I could be a complete total failure, but that doesn't matter. All that matters is if I keep going.
Exactly. And I think that is
Oh, and there's no failure in improv.
nice.
I don't, at least as far as I know, I don't think so.
Failure in life. That's another key principle of the
Right.
shared program, of course, is that mistakes or failure. This is what you know me, I've said this about in every single thing I tell people. Every failure or mistake or challenge or roadblock is an invitation and an opportunity to completely level up. And it's so good. You know, it's an opportunity to innovate, to find better solutions, to look at, you know, all the things. So there's no failure. There is literally no failure. And yeah, so it's like what you shared about with your team. I feel like, you know, that's the importance again of having a vision. So articulating your vision and creating a culture within your team of this kind of relationship with life, where it's like, we have this vision. Now, yeah, right now we're like, the way we are trying to achieve it is through this specific structure. And we're going to try it. If it fails or like whatever happens, we can adjust. What the feedback we get, we can adjust within the team, we can adjust. So it's like, that's the cool thing about a vision versus like a goal or an ambition, is that it allows for that process of life and organic, like you do what you have to do, but in a way that is healthy and a natural process. Does that make sense?
I've heard from Jeff Bezos, it's something like this. He says to be committed to the vision and flexible in the details. And Ray Dalio talks about having self-accountability and also flexibility. So I think these guys have also touched on this, and they're both multi-billionaires.
Every great leader says the same stuff. I mean, basically, you know, the same principles are there.
Yeah, it sounds like an implementation of two seemingly mutually exclusive principles. However, it's the contrast and the dance that allows the dance to happen between them when applied at the same time.
Nice, nice. I love it. Yeah, and so I think from what I think the core of it, right, is that there is, if you look at creation, there is a profound brilliance in creation. I mean, hello, like, we are here. This is insane. Like, everything about this world is like beyond how you could imagine. I feel if you're really paying attention, if you really look at it, you know? And really the game, if you want to call it that, or like the task here is for us to cultivate ourselves in a way that aligns us and gives us access to that genius, to that brilliance, even at the smallest level, so that we can, achieve our full potential, bring forth whatever greatness, whatever genius that we have that's unique to us. And like you said, everyone has unique genius. It's cultivating an environment that can blossom, that can flower. You can start to have access to that. And then creating a vision for your company or business or whatever it is for you, and then cultivating a team which creates a culture of growth dynamism, greatness in everyone. Because really, you don't just want it for yourself. You want to have that kind of culture that it enhances the people who work with you, their lives in a way that's evolutionary, inspiring, exciting, forward progress for them. And then obviously, whatever it is you're delivering to the world, you also want that to be, some kind of impact that creates well-being. It just depends on, of course, your product, service, category, industry, whatever it is that you're trying to do, but or whatever hole or opportunity you see in the marketplace. But ultimately, like staying aligned with the aspect of bringing well-being in whatever way you do. And then, looking at then what are the barriers that are within you to both foresight and insight and that your connection to that genius. That's big stuff.
Those are invisible barriers, by the way.
Well, it requires reflection, self-honesty, a little space and time, and a willingness, obviously, because it's like you said, they sometimes they're invisible, sometimes they're not, but usually we keep ourselves a little away from them. So it does require being willing to reflect and really look at it.
Being secure, right? You can't be avoidant and you can't be anxious. You got to be secure. You get to be secure. And if you notice that you're being avoidant, or you notice you're being anxious, remember the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So
Yeah.
really, you just got to look at that and see, oh, okay, am I showing up in an avoidant way? Am I showing up in an anxious way? It's a spectrum. You want to get right in the middle to secure and be secure.
But see this is the thing though, right? And this is what I think both coaching and inner engineering, yoga, meditation, whatever it is, that's where these come in, because why is someone avoidant and why are they anxious? That's usually a fundamental relationship with life. It's samskaras. It's a lack of connection to how life really works and the big picture and the potential. And it's fear-based, basically. And so, but it's a very physiological thing. Like, it's in your nervous system. If you could just stop, you would. These things are deeply wired. So that's why, in my experience, even just coaching or like therapy, which a lot of people have done, that's why, people are doing plant medicine. That's like why it's so huge. Because even coaching and therapy only go to a certain level. That's why I don't use or recommend plant medicine. What I use and recommend is sadhana, is true yogic practices. And personally, I think right now, from what I've experienced and seen in the world, the practices that the Isha Foundation offer are the most powerful and the most effective, potent, all those things. But without that, yeah, there are deep levels on which these things hold us, these karmas, if you want to say it that way.
Yeah, so it's very important to loosen their hold on us, right? And as you mentioned, spiritual sadhana is the way to go as a foundation, but it is the deep foundation, and it's not the only thing, right? So
Well, that's why I really feel, and I share this with you a lot, that I feel like, look, for me, what I have experienced as coaching now, coaching can mean a lot of different things, but the way that I do it and yeah, it can be a huge part of that powerful process of becoming more free.
It's really about raising consciousness, and there's no need to push anyone in this direction or that direction. It's really about igniting the desire to raise one's consciousness, and naturally one will move in that direction that is appropriate for that piece of life, because it's a constant unfolding and it's so complex, and we don't know what is required for a given piece of life at a given time. Of course, energetic processes of spiritual sadhana can help hasten that process, and it is something that, if adopted by every single person, or even probably like 10% of the global population, in a consistent way, that itself will make a complete transformation in the collective consciousness. So
True.
that's like that's just like one part of it. And yeah, like as you mentioned, there's different things that every piece of life needs and process, and there should be tools, systems that are available for that life to access and make use of. And there are actually, that's the most important thing. Right now, there's a lot of accessibility, but there's just a lack of wonder and curiosity, where people are actually seeking these things out and committing to them, these processes, whatever the process is that's relevant for them. So that's why I said, like, honestly, step one is wonder, and you call it curiosity. Some
Well,
might call it excitement. Yeah, like whatever it is within you.
it's an engagement, right? Because I at least when you say that, what comes up for me is that why are people not getting involved and in that wondering, curious state? If you want my view on it, I think it has a lot to do with the current technology and the way that people are using it. So why? Because from my experience personally, and what
But
I
it's
can
an
see,
amplification of what is within. So
yeah,
it's not
because
due to the
basically,
technology. It's
oh no,
used.
no, people's use, it's like it's their relationship with it, but it because so what happens, right? Even in the womb, if you think about it, there's a contraction, and that contraction of is what gets the baby to move out of the womb. If there wasn't a contraction, it's like comfortable, warm, you're getting fed, it's like cozy. The baby would probably stay in the womb. And my experience in my life is that there's always been a deep seeking. And every time something is felt like uncomfortable, stressful, painful, like friction, whatever, there's like that friction is impetus for me to grow and expand and seek more and more awareness and deeper reflection and progress and looking at how I'm keeping, all of those things. And I feel like now we just have so many things at our disposal that have become like that we can
The
just like out.
distraction,
Yeah,
right?
instead of like dealing with your actual life, you can just kind of like sit on your screen or in your movie or in your games. Or, I mean, if you think about it, from what I understand, I mean, I'm just going to speak. I'm in the US right now, and I think probably, I really genuinely believe this. There are probably statistics. There might be 90% of people in this country on some kind of medication, either medication or drugs, using them. And people use medication as drugs. So yeah. So that also, I think, is a huge distractor from the process, right? Because it's a way of manipulating or escaping or
So the
not
system,
being fully with your experience and not allowing it to inform you.
yes, the system is structured in a way that it is not for your well-being, correct? And like you said, actually, it all comes down to one thing: relationship, how you relate to it, how you relate to yourself, how you relate to situations. And it's fascinating, actually, because when I did think about these things, in my early 20s, and that's how I gained awareness, and I went in a completely different direction. And there are people who are completely opposite of me. And I was telling my friend, and I said to him, I said, that guy we know, there's only one difference between him and me. We could have made two, three different decisions, and I would have been on the exact same path as him. And I don't think he couldn't fathom what I was talking about. But I said, it's literally just like a few decisions. And I can clearly see what that is. I can very clearly see. So, which is why for me, I can't say that I'm better than anyone or someone is better than me, because I can see very clearly that 10 years ago, me having perceived something and making a particular decision, somebody else being in a very similar types of situation and them making a different kind of decision, it would have led them to depravity, and it's led me to a completely different trajectory. And which is why for me it came down to, these are certain inflection points that happen in life, and I want to have my inflection points earlier and in such a way that it leads me to a more positive direction. And it's not just for me, but it's for all life. If I can do this for myself, then it'll impact many more lives. All right. What I mean by this is having a realization at 60, if you can have it at 25, why the fuck not? That's essentially what I'm saying here.
Absolutely.
And not only the realization, but the action to implement that perception, to implement what that perception has unlocked for you. That right there, why not? It'll come with a different set of challenges, of course, and certain types of aloneness, because you're just going to find that there's just fewer people that would understand you. This is my own experience. But perhaps it's worth it. I don't know. It's worth it for me, but I think I would have had challenges in the other paths as well, right? And I'm just talking about one particular inflection. We're not even talking about all the different inflection points that I would have had in different areas of my life. So it's fascinating for me. It's really fascinating, because it just goes to show that whoever people might say is, wow, this person is so successful, literally one fucking difference, and they could have been just like everybody else, or not have that success. Just one decision at one early point in their life, one perception, something they perceived. So yeah, does that mean that you should give up? Is it too late if you're thinking that? No, don't. It's never too
Never.
late. And I mean, if it's too late, even if you're dying, it's not too late. Like literally, if you're gonna die in this moment, it's not too late. Fuck you, you could get enlightened before you die. That would be amazing. If I can't get enlightened while I'm alive, I would at least like to get enlightened and die an enlightened death. Whew. Or when I die and I'm crossing the river, what is it? There's two paths. You either go back, you go into the river, or you go past the river. So, well, I'll do whatever is appropriate. Anyways, yeah. With that, I'm out.
Well, yeah, it's all really so amazing, isn't it? I really resonate with what you said in terms of, yeah, in certain situations, literally everyone could turn into an animal. That's what is possible, and looking at my family and my experience of life, I recognize how lucky I am. And yes, I have made choices consistently, and I still do every day. But the way that you cultivate yourself is massive. That cannot be overstated. And I think for me, if we, I have taken many, many years to, I have become entangled in certain relationships, and karmically that took a lot of time to like work through. I wish I would have known more earlier, but that's been my path. So, but I've been on the personal development path for many, many, many years, my whole adult life. And I feel like there's a point where you pass through the stage of consistently needing, and you are able to turn your awareness outwards and support people in a bigger way, because you're not in survival mode anymore. And I really feel like if we are there, we have the responsibility to bring value to the world and serve in whatever way that looks like, you know. There was a couple more statements that I wanted to share. The gentleman who wrote Conscious Capitalism presented, which I loved his presentation. It was so amazing.
Who?
His name is Raj. Honestly, I would have to look up his name because I don't remember off the top of my head. But I loved what he said. He said a lot of things. But he talked about people are business.
Raj Sisodia.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he talked about so many beautiful things, but he talked about the purposes of business are like, yes, to add value, to serve some kind of delivery of human well-being. And we can't, it's like our social responsibility to be profitable, because society doesn't function without profitable businesses. But talking about the healing potential and caring spirit of business, and that CEOs are conscious evolution officers, which I kind of loved.
I like that.
It was really beautiful. Conscious evolution officer, and he talked about our global challenges at this moment in time, right? Which is some of them, which are autoimmune diseases, the climate crisis, the loss of nature and natural environments. Sadhguru talked about 85% of photosynthesis or plant cover on this planet being gone in the last 30, 50 years. Cancer, mental health crisis, diabetes, obesity, and income inequality. So with those global challenges, businesses, as usual, are not an option. And we need to really look at how to create businesses that are serving higher purposes, that are healing and creating solutions for these things in a profitable way that benefits ourselves, our employees, our stakeholders, and the customers truly. And we need to be conscious leaders, which means that we're selfless. Really, leaders are seeing needs that they're committed to filling and to supporting people. And it does mean that, like, we at times have to be much more selfless, and that we create caring cultures to execute this. That whole leaders need to be whole. They need to have their masculine and feminine balanced. And Sadhguru talks a lot about this. A lot of, spiritual processes talk about this, as becoming a balanced whole human being is a lot about masculine and feminine balance. Yeah, socially irresponsible not to be profitable. And profits cannot be pursued. Profits are an outcome of value add. And within conscious capitalism, there should be cases for society, planetary, human, and business. So there's so many amazing things that were shared in this conference, but of all those things I just shared with you, do you have any?
Yeah, that's actually absolutely beautiful. And I appreciate the point on profits are your responsibility, because this might piss off people, but CSR, corporate social responsibility, I don't understand it. In fact, it seems stupid and pointless. Why the fuck would you need CSR? Your entire business itself is a social responsibility. And if you feel like you need to have a separate arm for corporate social responsibility that is donating money, then why?
Mhm.
You can take the money, the profits, and invest it into different things. Like, for example, if you're not an environment company, but you can invest into the environment and stuff. But why label it as a CSR, and why have a particular budget that you have to allocate and that has to be put into different things? Like that itself just sounds like publicity to me. It doesn't seem to be that it is actually something where you're, huh?
It doesn't feel like fully authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
More of like it's almost like a deflection. It's like, oh, it's like a greenwashing in a way.
For example, banks. I'll give a I'll give a very simple. I know someone. My cousin works at the bank, and the stories I hear from him working at the bank, it's frankly embarrassing the way that they're operating, right? And I'm like, these people are operating like this, and this is a major bank in
Oh yeah, you don't.
like household name bank, and I'm like, dude, this is how they're operating. I'm sure they have a CSR arm and all these things.
Yeah,
Just don't do that. Fix the way that you're treating your people first. There's so many basic the four elements just mentioned, right? Fix those things first. You don't have to think about CSR as a external thing you do. If it's embodied by the leaders, if it's embodied in the teams, then it'll be embodied throughout the organization, and that will be carried forth. That's the way to do it.
That is right.
And you don't need to call it CSR.
Basically, it's the same. It's like get your shit, if you will, in alignment with true integrity, and you won't need to pretend you have integrity.
Yeah, I mean that's one part of it, and the other thing, I think I enjoy the overall conscious capitalism because it doesn't sound like advocacy, right? You have all these advocates who I think there's a different word for it, like environmental advocates, but environmentalists, what's the word for it? Whatever. In general, like all these different areas, right? There people are advocating for this, they're advocating for that. Whereas here, it's like not so much about like advocating from the external, where you're just saying things, but it's in your implementation itself, you make it such that there's no requirement for advocacy from an external force because you're operating in a particular way where advocacy itself becomes obsolete. So that's my idea here, which is like, why the fuck do you even need advocacy? Like it shouldn't even be required. It's not necessary. You just operate in a way that nobody has to advocate against you. But
Right.
but if you're an oil company and people are advocating against the oil, you can't do that. You need oil in the world. Like that's not how it works. Plastics operate on petrochemicals. You cannot build plastics without that, right? Vehicles, so many things you do require it. The real thing is not to advocate against it, but instead to take all your resources, all your energy, all your attention, and say, how can we focus on creating an alternative that is sustainable and fits the system, fits the structure, and is actually going to be profitable? Now people will naturally switch. That's the way to go. Rather than so, like that's how I'm thinking about it. And there's so many different ideas and stuff that I have. I just cannot do it right now. I'm not in that position, but I'm doing what I can with what we can do with Shutterly, and then we'll see what doors can open up moving forward. But that's what's required, right? And so this, what you just shared, these ideas of conscious capitalism, they seem to align quite well with this, and I
Absolutely.
just see opportunity.
Sadhguru definitely addressed that very point that you're talking about, that you can't advocate against oil when there's no actual solution. And by the way, you're using it constantly for every single thing you do. So I love what you said. I think that was really right on and true. So yeah, absolutely. There's a few more principles. Oh man, there's so many good ones here actually. I really, really, really love so much of this thing, but
we can also do another conversation if there's so many more. I think that will be really cool. We can get deeper into them. We can do a few more if you want.
Yeah, let's just do a couple more, which is, I love a few of these things, which is like the purpose of business is not to make a profit. The purpose of business is to produce profitable solutions for problems of people and planet.
That's amazing. Back when I was in university, we had Dr. Rafiq Lutfi, And back when this was Xerox was the #1 company, he was a senior executive leading the technology there. And so he was old back when I knew him, like 75 years old. He's probably 80 something now. And he used to always tell me this. He told not just me, I'm sure he told everyone this, but he used to say, technical solution to people problems. This from back then. And this guy, he had, I don't know, he has like hundreds of patents too. It was great. Like he like personally like mentored me and stuff. So it was awesome. Way like back then, like I was like, I don't know how old, like early 20s for a few years. I used to always talk to him. And that's really what that is, right? So that's still there. And I find that really beautiful, which is, that's what we're doing right now. I'm constantly exploring technology, and that's what the team is. We're exploring the technology. We're playing around. We're seeing what we can do. We're talking to people. We're seeing how can we help people with this technology. We're just seeing how we can solve their problems, give them something that they like, that they're willing to use, and pay us for. And that's the circle. That's the cycle, the feedback loop. That's the innovation. And the way that we conduct ourselves is what brings them to us, and they refer others. And it's not about how fast. It's about how quickly you're doing the cycle, and it's about how much you're doing it, and that's it. Because as we're helping people, adding value, naturally we're profitable. So that's really all it is, and this is going to compound over a period of time. Yeah. So it could potentially become exponential. I can't say what it's going to be. What it's
not.
You
can also see other businesses or other needs, and then create different things to fulfill other needs. But yeah, must be profitable. Every great purpose is a healing purpose. Every business should strive to alleviate suffering, elevate joy, and enable healthy growth. And then one of the other ones is work is love made visible. And I just love all of that. It's really beautiful stuff.
Very beautiful. What else?
Well, I think the other aspects, which I think we could go into more in terms of like the technical parts of how to work with people and how to work with the things that come up within teams, within executing these things that maybe, are tricky, or can be tricky. I think that's really important too, but maybe that's a longer conversation. But I think actually I can do it in a short enough time, I think. So one of the examples that Sadhguru gave was the Ravana and Rama, right? And so he talked about after Rama killed Ravana, that he wanted to go and do penance in the Himalayas for a year and a half or whatever it was. And he was asked, like, why? You just killed like a great demon. Like, why would you want to do penance, Like, it's good. Like, what you did was good, And he said there was an aspect of Ravana that was very devoted, very spiritual, very pious, or whatever the words are. And for killing that aspect of him, I have to ask for forgiveness or whatever it was. And
it was because he was a Shiv Bhakt. He was a devotee of Shiva. In other words, Ravana had a dimension of himself. He was in reverence of the dimension of nothingness. So he's a deeply spiritual.
He was a deeply spiritual being, yeah.
Yes, but he did not act in accordance to the well-being of all, and then he had to pay his price for that.
So one of the things that, this again is very multidimensional, as everything is, but one of the things.
Let me rephrase. It's not that he didn't act in accordance to. It's not only that he didn't act in accordance to the well-being of all. He did not exist in that way.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't exist in such a way that he was existing for the well-being of all. He existed in such a way that he was existing the well-being of some, those within his kingdom. And even within his kingdom, it's managed in a particular way. And so for those that were outside of his kingdom, he was particular. I'm not going to go into these details, but that right there is very important, because remember, ambition to vision.
Like exclusive and destructive versus inclusive, right? But so one of the things, right, when it said like you have to make people fall in love with you, you have to like really, inspire them to understand and be like embodying your vision. One of the things he talks about is you have to fall in love with them. And a lot of times, right, people will do things or they'll have elements of them that trigger us or that aren't awesome or, that are stressful or qualities that aren't healthy, or we can see how they're dysfunctional or whatever. And there's this idea of like Ravana with 10 heads. One of his heads was this devotional, spiritual, aspect. And then the others were whatever else they were. And it's not that we have 10 heads, but there are qualities in everyone that are negative, and then there are positive qualities. And I think my other teacher used to say, like, if you come from the place within you that is all inclusive, that is your highest potential, that is your ground of being, and you speak to that place and see that place and interact with that place and other, then you call them to that. So another principle we talk about in like couples and leadership, like team coaching, which I do have a certificate in and do myself facilitate. It's like connection before correction. So there's a way where when you see someone's greatness, their divinity, their potential, their sincerity, and then you call them out, or you try to support them or help them or communicate with them in a way that's different than if you just like attack someone. Do you know what I'm saying? Or if you just
100%. It's not an attack at that point.
Yeah, but if you see their qualities that are like negative or, unproductive or stressful or hurtful or whatever it is that's not happening well, and you mistake those actions for who they are versus seeing the depth of who they are, and that this is just behavior or, compulsion or habits or like a limited way of functioning. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's very interesting that is a way, like a fundamental way of reorienting yourself in how to interact with people, with yourself and with people.
It requires putting aside preferences, your likes and dislikes, in order to connect with another being and see them for who they are. Seeing the divinity. When we bow down to people, what are we doing with the namaste? You are saying that the divinity within me bows down to the divinity within you. You're offering that respect. Even deeper, actually, you're offering that reverence. And so when we do that, we're opening up doors. Yeah, we're opening up doors to connect as a life. And so when
life and a soul and a being.
Yes. And from that place, from that way of connecting with whoever it is that is in front of you, that piece of life is going to understand that that you are
honoring them in a way.
Honoring them. And from there, your correction will be better received. As long as they're in that space within themselves.
Well, and even there's a lot of layers to that, which we could talk about another time, but I think ultimately, like, that's the fundamental relationship with life that we're talking about here, with ourselves, with with the world, with life itself. Like, that is what we're talking about when we're talking about conscious capitalism or whatever. It's like interacting with yourself your team, the world, adding value in a place of reverence for life, respect for life, love for life. So, yeah, good stuff, huh?
Yeah, I think with that, we can close it out for this conversation.
Amazing. Thank you.
Bye.